In a grand cathedral, a boy named Lid Heworth is relieved of his duties as a royal priest. He is being exiled from the magnificent royal capital. Returning to his room, he finds a shadowy figure waiting. But it's just his companion, a talking cat named Silky. The cat, of course, demands immediate attention. Lid, however, has to deliver some somber news. An order came down from the Archbishop himself. His unique skill has been deemed worthless, and Silky is not taking it well. The cat suspects the real reason involves a certain duke's daughter. Silky argues that Lid's power is most needed in the capital. The cat turns away in a frustrated huff, but Lid gently explains that helping people is what truly matters. Silky questions if he's really okay with losing his dream. With a serene smile, Lid confirms his resolve. His mind now made up, they look out the window. He promises to do his best wherever he is sent. Seeing his determination, Silky finally relents. The cat vows to follow his partner to the ends of the earth. A quiet moment of reflection before their journey begins. In the capital, a sacred ritual called the Rite of Confirmment was once Lid Heworth's solemn duty to perform. Now, he watches the city he served fade into the distance. A quiet moment of regret for the dream he had to leave behind. But his journey continues, as people everywhere need his help. The driver informs him of his destination, Lastia village. Lid offers a simple, grateful reply. Their carriage ventures deeper and deeper into the forest. He gently wakes Silky, who's been napping through the whole ordeal. It's time to get ready, for they have finally arrived. A sudden jolt sends Silky flying through the air. Lid turns, startled by the commotion. Wasting no time, he leaps from the carriage. The driver struggles to control the terrified horse. Lid realizes the animal is scared of something up ahead. A sudden realization dawns on him. He sprints forward, warning the driver to get away. A swarm of wyverns is attacking someone on the road. He grips his staff, his expression hardening. He's decided on the quickest course of action. The wyverns are attacking a lone girl on the road. She lets out a terrified scream, clutching a small knife. But just as the beast lunges, someone suddenly appears before her. It's Lid standing between her and the monster. The girl can only watch in stunned silence. With a swift motion, he swings his staff and sends the creature reeling back. His eyes burn with a newfound intensity. The girl looks on, frozen by the sudden violence. But the first wyvern was just the beginning of the swarm. He turns to the girl, asking if she's all right. She can only stammer a reply, still reeling from the attack. Silky, however, seems more concerned with Lid's fighting style. Lid explains there was no time for anything else. He tells Silky to focus on protecting the girl, who is, of course, completely baffled by the talking cat. Silky smugly informs her that talking isn't his only trick, as he can also create a barrier to keep her safe. With his new charge secured, Lid steps forward to face the horde. Lid stands alone, a single priest against a sky full of monsters. The girl insists it's impossible for one person to face them all. But Silky just scoffs, calling this a light pre-dinner workout for his master. She can only stare, completely baffled by the cat's confidence. Lid closes his eyes, and a soft light emanates from his staff. The girl looks up in terror as the wyverns begin their assault. The first one dives down with a furious screech. She cries out a warning as the entire swarm descends upon them. But Lid's eyes are a mask of pure, unwavering focus. He raises his weapon and utters the name of his sacred staff. He unleashes the true power of his divine weapon. A blinding flash erupts from the staff, forcing the girl to shield her eyes from the overwhelming light. The diving wyverns are suddenly stopped in their tracks. They seem completely paralyzed by the holy energy. One by one, they begin to plummet from the sky. And just like that, the entire swarm is neutralized. The girl can only stare, utterly speechless. Lid turns back with a casual smile, as if that was just a minor inconvenience. But she has yet to witness the true extent of his power. Meanwhile, back in the royal capital, the grand cathedral stands silent. Inside, a lone figure works late into the night. It's the Archbishop Golbert gloating over Lid's recent departure. But his moment of peace is interrupted by a young priest. The boy presents a stack of documents left behind by Lid. Golbert is furious, having ordered this research to be thrown away. He erupts in anger, calling Lid's unique skill a worthless curse. A power, he claims, that is utterly meaningless and without purpose. But then, a sudden thought gives him pause. He seems to recall a name or perhaps a forgotten memory. He remembers the day Lid performed the rite for Duke Vargas's daughter, an ability that was considered a complete dud. He had questioned the young priest, noting that nothing had changed. A flustered Lid tried to explain the skill's true purpose, but the girl's father had erupted in fury, accusing him of tainting the sacred ritual with his own failures. The young priest had pleaded with Golbert, arguing the skill's rarity, but the Archbishop had simply brushed him off. He insinuated that a failure like Lid would only cause trouble, a veiled threat that left the young priest stunned into silence. He smugly states that simply exiling Lid was a generous act. Lid, knowing he couldn't argue, had accepted his fate, but he had one last request, to pass on his research. He hoped his findings could help guide those who came after him. The Archbishop mockingly accepted this as his final duty. Then, with a cruel laugh, he told Lid to clear out his room and leave. The bitter memory fades as a voice calls out to him. It's the girl he just saved, snapping him out of his thoughts. She bows deeply, thanking him for saving her life. He's surprised she knows his name, but she explains she was expecting him. She realizes he must be the new priest for Lastia village. Flustered, she apologizes for forgetting to introduce herself. Her name is Millie Chambal, a sister from the village. Lid returns the introduction with a gentle smile. Millie admits that she's actually quite surprised by him. She confesses she was expecting a much older priest. She's amazed that someone so young and powerful would be sent to their village, leaving Lid speechless. But Millie insists that he is truly incredible. A priest who can defeat a swarm of wyverns is worthy of respect. Lid tries to downplay his incredible feat with a bashful smile, but Silky chimes in, suggesting he's just used to being underestimated. Millie is still trying to process everything she's just seen. Her attention then shifts to the talking cat she's been curious about, and Silky is more than happy to introduce himself as Lid's partner. Millie's brain short-circuits, wondering if talking cats are just a normal thing back in the capital, but she quickly accepts this new reality, happily shaking Silky's paw. As they continue their journey under the moonlight, Lid asks why she was in such a dangerous place. She explains she was out gathering specific medicinal herbs. Her expression darkens as she reveals a mysterious illness is plaguing her village. Lid recalls how she clutched the basket as Silky notes the herb's quality. She explains that these particular herbs are incredibly rare in the area. She quickly apologizes for bringing up such a grim topic so soon. But with a bright smile, she expresses hope that things will now change. Lid's gaze falls upon her hands, realizing the hardship she's endured just to find these herbs. He looks to the moon and quietly agrees with her sentiment. Finally, the first houses of Lastia village come into view. But Millie senses something is wrong, hearing a commotion from the square. A pair of villagers spot them, calling out in relief at her return. Millie holds Silky close, her expression filled with concern. A woman with long, flowing hair emerges from the crowd. It's her older sister, Lana, who rushes towards her. She pulls Millie into a tight embrace, scolding her for being late. Lana explains she was worried sick, fearing the worst. The village chief approaches, revealing they were about to send a search party. Millie apologizes again, but proudly presents her basket of rare herbs. The chief can only smile, relieved to see her safe and sound. But Lana's concern returns, questioning her sister's well-being. Millie's gaze shifts to Lid, the quiet stranger who saved her life. Under the quiet gaze of the moon, Millie explains that this priest Heworth saved her life. Her sister immediately bows, offering her heartfelt gratitude. She thanks Lid by name, her expression softening with relief. The villagers gather around, their initial panic finally subsiding. Lid takes in the scene, seeing the tight-knit community before him. The chief is just glad that Millie is safe and that he could help. Lana gently scolds her sister, reminding her how loved she is. And seeing this, Lid feels his journey was already worthwhile. Lana's gaze lingers on the young priest, her curiosity piqued. But the tender moment shatters as Lana suddenly collapses. Millie cries out in horror as her sister falls to the ground. The peaceful night gives way to the village's grim reality. The chief helps Lid carry Lana, directing him toward the church. As he gets a closer look, Lid is stunned by her condition. Inside, the church has become a makeshift ward for the afflicted. He asks about healers, but learns that magic and medicine have failed. Millie quickly offers the remedy made from her hard-won herbs. Lana weakly drinks the medicine, offering a faint word of thanks. She tries to reassure them, believing she just needs to rest. Millie can only watch, her hope fading with every passing moment. Outside, the chief explains that half the village is sick, and Lana pushed herself too hard. Just then, Millie rushes out, her face pale with panic. She tells Lid the herbs aren't working, and she can't possibly gather enough for everyone. The chief closes his eyes, admitting they're out of options. But Lid's voice cuts through the despair, insisting there is another way. Both Millie and the chief turn to him, a flicker of hope in their eyes. He explains that he can perform the rite of confirmment on Millie, the very same ritual that got him exiled from the capital. Without a moment's hesitation, Millie accepts his offer. She agrees, willing to try anything if it can save her sister and the village. With her hands clasped in prayer, Millie prepares for the ritual. Lid stands behind her and begins the sacred rite of confirmment. A brilliant light flashes as he places his hand upon her back. Under the quiet night sky, the fate of the village hangs in the balance. The chief watches on, noting that the skill she receives will be a gift. He knows the odds of getting a useful power are slim, but he has to hope. Just then, a soft thud breaks the solemn silence. Silky lands on his shoulder, telling the old man not to worry about Lud. The ritual ends, and Millie is told she can open her eyes. She opens her eyes, finding herself surrounded by glowing runes. Lid calmly explains that these are all the skills available to her. She is utterly stunned by his next words, choose one. The very concept of choosing a skill is unheard of. The options range from physical enhancement to explosive magic. Millie has never heard of such a thing, asking how many there are. The list of potential powers seems to stretch on forever. The chief recognizes them as legendary red-letter skills. He recalls an old tale of a priest who could grant such powers. But Silky smugly suggests that this is only the beginning. Millie realizes that with so many options, she can surely save everyone. And then her eyes land on one in particular. A skill called the Blessing of the Plant King. She's never heard of it, noting its unique golden glow. It grants the user control over all plants, maximizing their effects. She turns to Lid, her decision made in an instant. Lid begins the final part of the ritual, invoking the goddess's power. A crown of light descends upon Millie as she accepts the gift. He then presents her with one of the herbs she gathered earlier. He tells her to touch it and concentrate on her newfound power. She closes her eyes, focusing her newfound power on the herb. In an instant, the small plant begins to grow. And grow, much to Millie's complete shock. She can only watch, confused, as the leaves expand around her. The plant shoots up into the sky, carrying her with it. It now towers over the village church, a monument to her new skill. Lid explains that larger leaves mean a more potent medicine. With renewed hope, Millie gives the new remedy to her sister. Lana drinks it down, and for a moment, nothing happens. Then, her eyes snap open, clear and full of life once more. Millie cries out as her sister sits up, completely bewildered. Lana is stunned by how light her body feels, as Millie hugs her in relief. The village chief rushes off to share the miraculous news with the others. When Lana asks what happened, Liad explains it was Millie's new power. The chief tells the other sick villagers that Millie was the one who healed her, and soon, the entire church is filled with sounds of celebration and recovery. Millie tearfully thanks Lid, telling him the whole village is getting better. He tries to give her credit, but she's already decided he's a literal godsend. Lana watches the young priest, her expression a mix of awe and gratitude. The villagers surround Lid, offering him food and thanks for saving them all. The villagers announce a welcome party for their new priest. A grand feast is laid out in the center of the village square. Silky watches on as the town celebrates with food and drink. He notes that Lid looks exhausted, but our boy just smiles, unused to such gratitude. The villagers continue to shower him with gifts and food. Silky observes that despite his tired face, Lid seems truly happy among these warm people. Meanwhile, Silky has eaten enough for the entire village, much to Lid's amusement. The celebration continues late into the night, full of life and laughter. At the table, Lid discusses the illness with Millie and Lana, admitting he's never seen anything like it. But Silky wisely points out that for tonight, the crisis has been averted. Lid agrees with his companion, deciding to finally enjoy the feast. But just as he's about to eat, Millie calls out his name. She asks if it's really true he was exiled for being worthless. Lid can only offer a flustered confirmation, as Lana questions the Archbishop's judgment. Silky chimes in, calling the Archbishop a prejudiced fool who never even bothered to see Lid's power. Lid tries to quiet his partner, but the cat is on a roll. He calmly states that it all worked out for the best, since he was able to help their village. Millie looks at him, her expression filled with admiration. She agrees with his sentiment, while Silky just sighs at how hopelessly good-natured his master is. Lana then gets his attention, and he turns with a reassuring smile. She tells him with a brilliant smile that she truly respects him. Lid is taken aback by the sudden praise when a new voice calls out. Suddenly, a hand grabs him from behind. A young boy has appeared, asking if Lid is here. Lana seems to understand exactly what's going on. Lid just smiles, commenting on how kind she seems. She thanks him again for saving them from the wyverns. Then she offers him a place to stay in their spare room. He politely refuses, but Lana insists their home is his. After all, he's the hero who saved them all. Silky, on the other hand, is more than happy to accept the offer. Lid asks if she's sure, but Lana simply smiles and confirms. She tells Millie to show him the way while she speaks with the village chief. Lid smiles, realizing he'll be staying with the two sisters. The thought of living under the same roof as Lid sends Millie into a flustered panic. Lid looks over, confused by her sudden giggling fit. She quickly composes herself, saying she's looking forward to it. Then, without warning, she grabs his arm and pulls him along. Silky watches from the table, commenting on the girl's lively spirit. He follows them into the night as Millie leads their new priest home. In their new temporary home, the night is quiet. Lid reflects on the kindness of the villagers. Silky reminds him that tomorrow their real work begins. He tells Lid to get some rest, feigning indifference. With a final goodnight, our boy settles in for the night. The next morning, a voice calls out for Lidi. It's Millie, knocking on his door to wake him. Getting no answer, she calls his name again, a bit concerned. She peeks inside to find him still fast asleep. Silky greets her, confirming Lid is not a morning person. Silky comments that this is a typical morning for Lidi. Millie finds his sleeping face adorable, but Silky prods her to get on with it. She remembers she's here for breakfast, but Silky has a better idea. The cat's suggestion leaves her completely flustered. He cheekily references a fairy tale about a waking kiss, and gives her a very mischievous wink, ever the helpful wingman. Millie's mind races, her heart pounding at the thought. Silky just smirks, clearly enjoying the show, all while Lid sleeps on, completely oblivious. Millie leans in closer, gently brushing his hair from his face, but her resolve wavers as she kneels by his bed. Just as she hesitates, a sudden sound breaks the silence. Lid's eyes snap open without warning. He wakes to find Millie's face just inches from his. The two of them freeze in a moment of mutual shock. He jolts upright as she scrambles to explain the misunderstanding. Silky, however, is quite pleased with this new morning routine. Later, after a well-deserved breakfast, Millie happily agrees to show him around the village. Lid thanks her, ready to investigate the source of the illness. Millie is absolutely beaming, clearly thrilled to be his guide. And so their tour of Lastia village begins. They walk through the peaceful, rustic landscape, taking in the simple beauty of his new home. Millie comments on how lovely the village is. So lovely, in fact, that she's practically leaning on him. But Lid seems lost in thought, scanning the area around them. Millie notices his focus and asks if he's looking for something. He explains that he and Silky are searching for the source of the illness. She asks if they've found any clues so far. Lid concludes that nothing seems amiss within the village itself, which means the source of the illness must be somewhere outside. His eyes drift towards a river flowing from the nearby mountains, a steady stream that cuts right through the landscape. He then spots something strange rising from the mountains upstream. Millie explains it's smoke from the mining city of Dowell. The name rings a bell for Lid as Millie adds that it's become a boomtown. He remembers hearing that a rich new ore vein was recently found there. With the river flowing directly from that city, he realizes it's worth investigating. And so, their attention turns to the bustling industrial city of Dowell. Meanwhile, back in the capital, Archbishop Golbert is having a rather stressful day. A subordinate informs him that a flood of letters has arrived, all concerning Lid Heworth. Golbert grumbles, wondering why mail for an exiled priest is still arriving. The nervous subordinate begins to read the first letter aloud. It's from a noble questioning the foolish decision to send such a talented man away. Golbert immediately takes this as a personal insult, snapping at the messenger. He dismisses it, claiming Lid's only real skill was getting people to like him. When asked how to respond, Golbert waves it off, saying the opinions of commoners are worthless. The subordinate points out that Lid mostly served commoners, with one notable exception. Duke Vargas's daughter. A smug grin spreads across Golbert's face as he recalls that the church runs on noble donations. The subordinate nervously questions a financial report he's holding. He stammers, pointing out what looks like a discrepancy. The document in question is a donation ledger for a certain marquee, but Golbert erupts in fury, insisting the numbers are correct. The terrified priest can only apologize and back away. Golbert smirks, clarifying that personal gifts aren't church business. The scene shifts to the sprawling industrial city of Dowell. Back in the village, Millie suddenly remembers something important. She tells Lid she knows a little about the mining city. She recalls hearing that its recent boom has made the Archbishop very happy. Lid realizes the mine's increased donations cast a dark shadow. He confirms his suspicions. The river is poisoned, and every sick villager drank from that very same water. His first priority is to find proof and stop the damage from spreading. But his investigation is interrupted by a sudden sneeze from Millie. She insists she's fine, trying to hide her shivering. Lid kindly offers her a warm drink, noting the mountain chill. His simple act of kindness leaves her completely flustered. He just smiles, saying he has Silky, his personal furry furnace. He tells her to warm up while he continues asking around. She clutches something close to her face. Realizing it's the cloak Lid just gave her, she knows she should probably give it back, but can't quite bring herself to let go. Both sisters seem completely smitten by the kind priest. Silky watches as Millie savors the scent of Lid's cloak. The cat's knowing glance snaps her out of her daydream. Lid, meanwhile, has found a place to gather information. He notices her bright red face, asking if she's all right. She frantically tries to silence Silky, who's enjoying her embarrassment. Lid and Millie step into a local tavern. Silky notes that the place is packed with miners, but their questions are met with hostility from the locals. Lid explains he's investigating the new ore from the mine. He asks if the ore is toxic or if anyone has fallen ill. This question attracts some very unwanted attention. Lid calmly explains that the river downstream is poisoned. The leader of the group seems to find this an inconvenience. He orders his men to grab them, eyeing Millie as a prize. One of the thugs seizes her and she cries out in fear, but Lid's expression turns cold and sharp. The thug holding Millie freezes in confusion. In a blur of motion, Lid steps forward. The leader suddenly finds himself airborne. His men can only watch as he sails past and makes a very undignified landing. The remaining thugs stare in disbelief as a single swing of Lid's staff clears the room. He calmly suggests they're now ready to talk, while Silky explains they made a very big mistake. The now cooperative miners reveal they've been digging up a new kind of ore, a dangerous black crystal that's not only magical, but also highly toxic. Lid presses them for more information, asking what happens to the ore. But the thugs claim ignorance, only knowing that a powerful client is buying it all up. Lid decides on a price for their silence and cooperation, and they quickly point him toward the man in charge, a certain Marquis Abe, who just so happens to reside in a nearby fortified manor. Silky, ever the reliable partner, heads out to scout the location. He returns with a report. A few guards at the gate, but more people lurking inside. Lid knows they need to get close to the Marquis, and Millie seems confident that for him it'll be easy. Lid tells Millie that he'll be going in alone. She panics, thinking he's left her behind for being a burden. But a familiar voice calls out from the shadows. It's Lid, revealing a divine cloak that grants invisibility. He explains that, like his staff, it's a special item perfect for infiltration. But he has one more thing to say to her. He thanks her sincerely, admitting he couldn't have gotten this far without her help. He then throws the cloak over both of them, apologizing for the tight fit, as the cloak is only meant for one, which sends Millie's brain into a complete and total system failure. Silky, meanwhile, is thoroughly enjoying the show. With a flustered Millie in tow, Lid prepares to move out. The guards at the gate are completely oblivious, as the invisible duo slips right past them. Silky leads the way, confident the target is just ahead. They stop before a door, sensing a powerful, foul magic within. Lid senses the source is near, but somehow obscured. A voice from inside confirms their suspicions, as the Marquis complains about his sick and dying miners, and reveals he's been dumping the toxic waste into the river. They crack open the door, listening in on the conversation. The Marquis's subordinate warns him of the dangers, but the noble just scoffs. Silky is ready to pounce, but Lid insists they need physical proof first. Having heard enough, the Marquis grabs a sword and fires his underling. Permanently, he swings the blade, intending to silence the man for good. The terrified subordinate can only cry out in fear, but the sword strikes the floor, missing its target completely. The Marquis looks around, confused as to where his victim vanished. Lid has appeared, pulling the man to safety and telling him to hide. Millie and Silky can only watch, stunned that their cover is blown. The Marquis demands to know who he is. He scoffs at the accusation, boasting of his church connections. Lid calmly offers him a chance to confess and make amends. But the noble just laughs, claiming his authority is absolute. Lid closes his eyes, realizing force is the only option. The Marquis activates a defensive skill, a powerful hexagonal barrier. He's completely encased in the shimmering wall of energy. From his safe space, he mocks the young priest's worthless power. But Lid simply holds out his hand and summons another divine weapon. A massive, crackling warhammer materializes in his grasp. The Marquis can only stare in utter disbelief. Lid calmly asks if he's sure that barrier will be enough. With a single earth-shattering swing, he brings the hammer down. The Marquis is sent flying by the sheer overwhelming force. Lid looks on, wondering if he might have overdone it just a little. The noble has been sent crashing straight through the floor into the basement. But Millie spots something else in the wreckage below. They find a trove of evidence: the black crystals, illegal ledgers, and a connection to the capital. The news of the Marquis's crimes spreads quickly throughout the region, but Lid still wonders who was buying the toxic ore and for what purpose. With the crisis averted, Millie waves a cheerful goodbye. Lid and his companion walk through the village. News of the young priest's deeds is sure to spread, and eventually reach the Archbishop himself. Golbert panics, realizing his source of donations is gone. He can't believe the exiled priest is responsible for this. Back in the peaceful village of Lastia, Millie muses that Golbert's plan has backfired spectacularly. The celebration continues long into the night. Meanwhile, Silky has clearly had one too many. Silky wonders how a simple celebration could have possibly led to this. Lid wakes up to find Millie passed out on top of him. The story flashes back 12 hours to that morning. A long line of villagers has formed outside the church. Lana is stunned to learn they all want the right of confirmment, but Lid happily agrees to help every single one of them. Lana argues that performing the ritual for so many is impossible. Lid just smiles, assuring her that he's more than capable. Silky chimes in, telling her Lid's power is anything but normal. Silky explains that for Lid, light exercise involves slaying dragons. Millie calls out to him, her voice filled with concern. She reports that even more people showed up than he asked for. She asks if he's truly planning to perform the rite for all of them today. Silky scoffs, claiming 100 people is barely a warm-up. Lid just smiles, admitting he's never tried it on this scale before. Lana still has her doubts, but Millie's faith in him is absolute. And so, with Millie acting as his apprentice, the mass ritual begins. Her job is to read the skills, but she's stunned by their power and rarity. The sheer number of options is enough to make her head spin. Millie is completely drained from the day's work, but Lid has already compiled a list of every skill they received. He explains it's for anyone who was too hesitant to choose. Lana, however, is completely baffled by this. She asks what he means by letting them redo the ritual. Lid explains that the once-in-a-lifetime rule is more of a guideline. The villagers are completely floored by this revelation. They ask if he can really grant skills to people who already have them, and suddenly everyone wants a do-over. Lid happily agrees, as Lana turns to Silky with a question. She asks Silky to confirm if the Archbishop was really the one who exiled him. With a knowing smile, she says that it all makes sense now. Later that night, Millie apologizes for her part in the day's events. She feels bad for running out of energy, but Lid assures her it's fine. Silky looks over the feast, wondering what the occasion is this time. Millie happily explains they're celebrating Lid for solving the poisoning. She adds they'll probably have another party tomorrow since they don't need a reason to celebrate. Another villager happily offers to help with the festivities. Lid reflects that while the capital was kind, this village feels like one big family. Silky agrees, musing that this must be what a real family feels like. Silky watches the conversation with a knowing eye. Lana approaches Lid, a drink in hand. She asks him how he's finding life in Lastia village. He admits he's never felt so at home before. He jokes that he could get used to this life, but Lana's expression turns a bit more serious, leaving our boy a little confused by the sudden shift. She figures someone with his power will be recalled to the capital soon, but Lid insists that this village is now his home. Lana smiles, realizing her sister might have something to do with that. Lana then reveals a surprising truth about her sister. Millie, she explains, was a foundling raised by the entire village. But with everyone struggling to get by, they could only take turns caring for her. A young Lana felt that this constant moving made her seem like a villain, a feeling that grew when Millie suddenly ran away. The villagers searched for her late into the night and found her hiding, wishing for a family of her own. So Lana begged her parents to take Millie in as her sister, but their parents passed away not long after. Lid finally understands the source of her kindness. Lana is flustered, realizing he overheard her entire story. Silky cheekily asks if she's had a bit too much to drink. Just then, a very unsteady Millie stumbles toward them. She latches onto Lid, happily declaring that he's all hers. Lana questions her sister's state, but Millie insists it's just juice. A juice that Lana points out is very much alcoholic. She asks Lid to take the hopelessly drunk Millie home for her, a request that leaves our boy completely speechless. Lana then turns to Silky, proposing a drinking contest instead. Millie happily slurs that she finally has him all to herself, leaving Lid with a very strained and helpless smile. He manages to get her back to their temporary home. Once inside, he helps her onto the bed. He finds some bedding, intending to sleep on the floor, but when he turns back, Millie is already fast asleep. He quietly removes his boots and gently covers her with a blanket. He watches her for a moment, lost in thought. Unable to sleep, he watches the sun rise over the mountains. The story shifts to a memory of a small, lonely boy. He turns his head, watching someone walk away. A figure leaves him behind on the outskirts of a village. He was found by a priest holding a tiny black cat. The boy looks back one last time, his expression somber. He bows his head as the priest takes him in. A quiet moment of acceptance for his new life. The memory fades, returning to the present day. Lid reveals that he understands the pain of being abandoned. He looks at Lana, knowing she must have endured so much. He reaches down to gently brush her hair aside, a quiet, tender moment as she sleeps. He smiles, thinking how incredible she is for always trying so hard. Deciding to get some rest himself, he turns to leave, but is suddenly stopped. His eyes snap open in surprise. Millie, not quite asleep, has grabbed his hand with a sleepy smile. He realizes she's just woken up, and he's completely trapped. She murmurs about how warm his hand is, holding on tight. Lid can only stammer her name, completely flustered. And with a sudden tug, he loses his balance. He tumbles forward with a soft thud. Millie looks up with a sleepy apology, and Lid finds himself pinning her to the bed. Our boy is, understandably, having a small meltdown, but Millie just wraps her arms around him, happily announcing that she's captured her priest. He tries to struggle, pleading for his release, but his panic is completely lost on her. She just smiles, telling him it's no use, and the night ends in a very compromising position. She then leans in and playfully bites his cheek. Lid's brain, of course, short-circuits completely. She sleep-talks about delicious meat, much to his confusion. He realizes it's just the alcohol talking. But then she softly murmurs his name. She confesses how special the village is for accepting her. Lid listens quietly to her heartfelt words. She then adds that something else special has appeared recently. A shy smile spreads across her face as she alludes to him, and our boy is once again left completely flustered. He wonders if she's finally truly asleep this time. She snuggles deeper into the covers, completely passed out. With a soft click, he quietly closes the door and lets out a long, exhausted sigh. But his moment of peace is interrupted by a familiar voice. It's Silky, who apparently lost his drinking contest with Lana, a defeat that has left the poor cat utterly traumatized. But he quickly recovers, giving Lid a very knowing smirk. He suggests that Lid has leveled up and should just stay with Millie, a suggestion that leaves our boy flustered, as Silky plays matchmaker. But the peaceful night gives way to a new morning. A sudden scream shatters the silence of the house. At the breakfast table, Lana calmly greets a flustered Millie, who frantically insists that last night was all the alcohol's fault. Lid tells her not to worry, much to her utter dismay. The scene then shifts back to the royal capital's Grand Cathedral, where Archbishop Golbert welcomes a very important guest. It's the imposing Duke Vargas with his daughter by his side. The Duke proudly introduces the girl as his daughter, Elena. He then impatiently tells the Archbishop to begin the ritual. A lavish spread of sweets is laid out for the guests. The Duke brings up the skill his daughter received, Level Upper. Golbert immediately bows, apologizing for the useless skill Lid granted her. He's desperate to win the Duke's favor, but is confused by his calm demeanor. But the Duke just smiles, calling it a wonderful skill. Golbert can only stare, completely taken aback by the praise. The Duke adds that the ritual itself was also a magnificent experience. The Archbishop argues that after the rite, she struggled to defeat a simple slime. But the Duke explains that was at level 1, and now she's level 70, capable of taking down wyverns alone. A revelation that leaves Golbert utterly speechless. The Duke explains that at level 70, she's a one-woman army. Golbert can only stammer in disbelief. The Duke laughs, incredibly proud of his powerful daughter. Golbert's mind races, recalling Lid's reports on the skill. The Duke then asks for the Archbishop's expert advice. Elena wants to know how she can reach level 100, a question Golbert can't answer, since he threw away all of Lid's research. The Duke's expression darkens, waiting for a response. He dismisses Golbert as unreliable, much to the Archbishop's horror. Golbert flashes back to the very documents he ordered destroyed. But Elena holds up a familiar-looking document. She explains Lid gave her the instructions to reach level 100 before he left. The Duke glares, asking if the Archbishop was even aware of this. He then smiles, suggesting Golbert badly underestimated the young priest. And he warns him not to underestimate his subjects either. Golbert stammers, completely lost by the Duke's words. The Duke then asks for a response to the protest letter he sent to the church. Golbert flashes back to dismissing that very letter, and the color drains from his face. The Duke tells him to read it carefully and prove his sincerity through his actions. Because if he senses any insincerity, the threat hangs heavy in the air. The Archbishop can only sweat under the Duke's intense gaze. As the Duke and his daughter take their leave, Golbert realizes he needs to find Lid's reports immediately. Outside, Elena calls out to her father. The Duke explains he has no intention of asking anyone else for help. Elena agrees, stating that a true leader cares for their people. She declares the monsters plaguing their lands are a bigger threat than the petty Archbishop who exiled her master. The Duke then recalls Lid was sent to Lastia village and decides to go there, an idea that fills Elena with joy at the thought of seeing her master again. Meanwhile, in the forests surrounding Lastia village, a young boy spots trouble, warning Millie of approaching beasts. She turns, ready to face the threat head-on. Placing her hand on a tree, she asks for its strength. She unleashes a new skill, a rain of sharpened branches. The effort clearly takes a toll on her. Lid watches from the side, observing her progress. The powerful attack stops all three boars in their tracks. Millie can hardly believe she managed to pull it off. Even Silky is impressed, complimenting her quick thinking. With their hunt successful, they begin the journey back to the village. Millie happily explains that these mountains were her childhood playground. Silky teases that she's more capable than she looks, much to her embarrassment. Lid explains her intimate knowledge of plants helped her master the skill so quickly. He notes that it once took a whole team just to hunt a single boar, which gives Millie a brilliant idea for a new village export, roasted wyvern. She decides to propose the idea to the chief, as Lid smiles, happy to have helped. But Lid then points to his own head, as Millie reminds him that he's already one of them now, a sentiment that leaves our boy completely speechless. Lid agrees, sharing a quiet moment with Millie, but their peaceful walk is suddenly interrupted. A messenger on horseback has an urgent message from the chief. He presents a scroll, a formal request from the village. Lid unrolls the message, his expression puzzled. It's an official order to abandon Lastia village entirely. Back in the village, the news has caused an uproar. Lana reads the decree, wondering where this came from. The village is to be turned into a reservoir, a plan that makes no sense now that the river is clean. Silky suspects the nobles are just trying to buy the land cheap. Lana confirms the villagers will be relocated to nearby cities, but Millie is heartbroken, unable to imagine living anywhere else. Lid listens to her plea, his expression growing more determined. He asks who issued the order, and Lana reveals it's a royal agency. The mention of the royal family seems to give Lid an idea. He grabs his staff and heads for the door, much to the sisters' confusion. With a bright smile, he announces he's going to meet the king. Silky explains the plan is to appeal directly to the top, though he doubts they'll get past the gate. But Lid insists that if he can find a noble with royal connections, he might have a chance. But his plan is cut short by a sudden commotion. He asks Millie if she also heard a monster's roar. He rushes outside, telling her to secure the village defenses. But she refuses to stay behind, vowing to help. She knows she might not be much help, but she has to try. Lid sprints through the snowy forest toward the sound. He spots something up ahead in a clearing. A pack of massive black wolves has surrounded a carriage, and standing before them is a lone swordswoman. Millie and Silky arrive just in time to see the girl in danger. Lid turns to Millie, asking if she thinks she can handle this. With a determined smile, she confidently agrees. She kneels down, placing her hand on the ground. She closes her eyes, focusing on the plants all around them. Her eyes snap open as she unleashes a new skill, Thornbind. Thorny vines erupt from the earth with blinding speed. A wolf is caught mid-lunge, completely ensnared by the attack. The entire pack is quickly bound by the magical plants. They struggle and roar, but are held fast by her power. Millie looks on, amazed that she actually pulled it off. The swordswoman is stunned by the sudden backup, but Millie's attack was just the opening act. Lid steps forward, his staff already glowing with power. His eyes snap open as he unleashes his divine weapon. He brings the staff down with a single decisive motion. A pillar of light descends upon the first wolf, followed by a barrage that strikes the entire pack. But one of the beasts manages to break free from the vines. Millie cries out a warning as the lone wolf escapes. The creature lands, ready for another round. Meanwhile, in the forests surrounding Lastia village, a young boy spots trouble, warning Millie of approaching beasts. She turns, ready to face the threat head-on. Placing her hand on a tree, she asks for its strength. She unleashes a new skill, a rain of sharpened branches. The effort clearly takes a toll on her. Lid watches from the side, observing her progress. The powerful attack stops all three boars in their tracks. Millie can hardly believe she managed to pull it off. Even Silky is impressed, complimenting her quick thinking. With their hunt successful, they begin the journey back to the village. Millie happily explains that these mountains were her childhood playground. Silky teases that she's more capable than she looks, much to her embarrassment. Lid explains her intimate knowledge of plants helped her master the skill so quickly. He notes that it once took a whole team just to hunt a single boar, which gives Millie a brilliant idea for a new village export, roasted wyvern. She decides to propose the idea to the chief, as Lid smiles, happy to have helped. But Lid then points to his own head, as Millie reminds him that he's already one of them now, a sentiment that leaves our boy completely speechless. Lid agrees, sharing a quiet moment with Millie, but their peaceful walk is suddenly interrupted. A messenger on horseback has an urgent message from the chief. He presents a scroll, a formal request from the village. Lid unrolls the message, his expression puzzled. It's an official order to abandon Lastia village entirely. Back in the village, the news has caused an uproar. Lana reads the decree, wondering where this came from. The village is to be turned into a reservoir, a plan that makes no sense now that the river is clean. Silky suspects the nobles are just trying to buy the land cheap. Lana confirms the villagers will be relocated to nearby cities, but Millie is heartbroken, unable to imagine living anywhere else. Lid listens to her plea, his expression growing more determined. He asks who issued the order, and Lana reveals it's a royal agency. The mention of the royal family seems to give Lid an idea. He grabs his staff and heads for the door, much to the sisters' confusion. With a bright smile, he announces he's going to meet the king. Silky explains the plan is to appeal directly to the top, though he doubts they'll get past the gate. But Lid insists that if he can find a noble with royal connections, he might have a chance. But his plan is cut short by a sudden commotion. He asks Millie if she also heard a monster's roar. He rushes outside, telling her to secure the village defenses. But she refuses to stay behind, vowing to help. She knows she might not be much help, but she has to try. Lid sprints through the snowy forest toward the sound. He spots something up ahead in a clearing. A pack of massive black wolves has surrounded a carriage, and standing before them is a lone swordswoman. Millie and Silky arrive just in time to see the girl in danger. Lid turns to Millie, asking if she thinks she can handle this. With a determined smile, she confidently agrees. She kneels down, placing her hand on the ground. She closes her eyes, focusing on the plants all around them. Her eyes snap open as she unleashes a new skill, Thornbind. Thorny vines erupt from the earth with blinding speed. A wolf is caught mid-lunge, completely ensnared by the attack. The entire pack is quickly bound by the magical plants. They struggle and roar, but are held fast by her power. Millie looks on, amazed that she actually pulled it off. The swordswoman is stunned by the sudden backup, but Millie's attack was just the opening act. Lid steps forward, his staff already glowing with power. His eyes snap open as he unleashes his divine weapon. He brings the staff down with a single decisive motion. A pillar of light descends upon the first wolf, followed by a barrage that strikes the entire pack. But one of the beasts manages to break free from the vines. Millie cries out a warning as the lone wolf escapes. The creature lands, ready for another round. The lone wolf snarls at the swordswoman, but her eyes are filled with cold resolve. She leaps into the air with incredible speed, unleashing a single decisive slash. She lands gracefully as her attack connects. The final beast is sent flying through the air. With the threat neutralized, she tosses her sword aside. Her eyes lock onto Lid, her expression changing completely, and she joyfully leaps into his arms, calling him her master, leaving Millie to wonder when Lid started collecting apprentices. She happily introduces herself as Elena, the Duke's daughter. Later, they all sit down for a much calmer discussion. Millie nervously serves tea to their noble guest, who accepts with a surprisingly gentle smile. Millie, however, is still processing that very forward introduction. Lid asks Elena why she's here, calling her master. She insists he drop the formalities and just use her name. She then asks if he's heard the full story from Millie, and launches into a tearful plea for him to stop being so distant. Lid calmly agrees, then asks again why she came to the village. She explains she came to consult him about her skill. She then erupts in anger, recalling her visit to the capital. Millie, however, seems completely captivated by the noble girl. She's amazed by her beauty and noble bearing. Elena regains her composure, explaining she's here on her father's behalf. Their lands are being overrun by a massive monster outbreak. The Duke is requesting Lid's help to deal with the threat. Overjoyed, Elena once again tackles him in a grateful hug. Millie, meanwhile, is fired up, seeing this as a learning opportunity. But Silky points out that helping them means delaying their own mission. Elena looks over, confused by the cat's comment. She panics, realizing Lastia village is in a state of emergency. Silky explains Lid's plan to appeal directly to the king. But Elena has a better idea, suggesting her father can easily get an audience. Silky smirks, declaring the matter settled. She proposes a deal. Lid helps her, and her father saves the village. With their new alliance formed, they decide to depart at once. There's just one problem. Her carriage is wrecked, and her father is far away. Lid mentions he has a divine weapon for travel, though Silky might have to endure it. The cat looks down in horror, knowing exactly what's coming next. He summons his divine travel weapon, Solomon's carpet. While Elena is amazed by the floating rug, Millie is just confused. The carpet then launches into the sky at blinding speed, shooting across the landscape like a comet. Elena is thrilled by the ride, but Millie clings to Lid for dear life. Silky wisely points out that talking about falling is probably bad luck. Millie's terror is palpable, while Elena seems to be having the time of her life. And then, the Duke's daughter gets a brilliant, if slightly chaotic, idea. She declares she's scared too and latches onto Lid from behind, a move that immediately throws the carpet off balance, sending them into a spin. After a rather turbulent flight, they finally arrive at the Duke's territory. A man who can only be Duke Vargas himself greets them with a warm smile. He's surprised by how quickly they arrived, as Lid offers a polite greeting. Elena, however, is still feeling the effects of their magical mystery tour. The Duke can only look on, completely baffled by his daughter's state. Later that night, inside the Grand Vargas Manor, they gather to discuss the urgent matter at hand. The Duke gets straight to the point, bringing up the monster infestation. He lays out a map, showing how local forces are struggling to hold the line. He explains the monsters are attacking from the southwest, and the situation is grim. Lid points to a specific location, the Seriana Great Falls. The Duke explains that the entire region has been off-limits for some time. Lid is taken aback, having heard it was a famous scenic spot. Elena realizes the plan is to strike at the enemy's main force. The Duke turns to Lid, asking if he can count on his help. Our boy just smiles, stating that's exactly why he came. But the Duke clenches his fist, his face a mask of frustration. He admits his shame at being unable to protect his own lands. Elena reassures him, declaring that she's stronger now, and with Lid, they can win. With a proud smile, her father agrees to leave it in their hands. The Duke confirms their plan. They move out at dawn. Meanwhile, Millie is having the time of her life in her lavish guest room. She's absolutely giddy over the incredibly soft bed. Bouncing around, she feels just like a princess in a fairy tale. But her private celebration is cut short by a knock at the door. She cautiously opens it, wondering who it could be. It's Elena, looking a bit more vulnerable than usual. The Duke's daughter admits she's scared to sleep alone and asks to stay. Millie is completely taken aback by the unexpected request, but she quickly recovers, happily welcoming her new roommate for the night. Millie asks Elena why she chose a combat-focused skill. She immediately regrets the question, thinking it was too personal. But Elena explains that her skill was her greatest wish. She asks Millie if she noticed her father's arm. Years ago, he fought in a great battle to defend the capital. He lost his arm in that fight, a sight that broke her heart. But her father tried to comfort his tearful daughter. He told her the sacrifice was worth it to secure her future. Millie listens, realizing the Duke is a true hero. And Elena is determined to become the strength he lost. Millie is completely overcome with emotion, a total fangirl for Elena's story. Elena explains her goal is to surpass her father, a wish Lid helped her fulfill. She then turns the tables, suggesting Millie's devotion to Lid is for a similar reason. A suggestion that sends Millie's brain into a complete system reboot. Elena just smiles, having seen right through her. She finds the flustered reaction rather endearing, and admits she understands completely, since she feels the same way. With their new rivalry established, she decides it's time for bed. She then invites Millie to join her under the covers. Millie, still flustered, asks what a noble lady normally does in these situations. She wonders if noble ladies usually have maids for this sort of thing, but Elena just finds her adorable, offering to sing her a lullaby. The next day, the team arrives at the Seriana Great Falls. Elena leaps into action, her blade a blur of motion. She checks on Millie, who is already soaked but enjoying the fight. The two girls stand back to back, ready to earn a nice victory bath. Silky notes how well the two of them are getting along all of a sudden. He wisely suggests they've bonded over a shared goal, Lid. Millie looks up, amazed by the sheer scale of the waterfall. But Silky's ears twitch, sensing a presence lurking nearby. They arrive at the basin of the Seriana Great Falls. Silky alerts them that the enemy is just ahead. A heavy, rumbling sound echoes through the mist, and a massive shadow begins to take shape in the water. Elena squints, trying to identify the looming figure. It's a king toad, and it is absolutely enormous. The team stands before the beast, dwarfed by its sheer size. While Elena is thoroughly disgusted, Millie seems almost impressed. She even has a brief daydream of it being a friendly village pet. But the toad quickly shatters that fantasy with a lightning-fast attack. Elena finds the giant toad utterly revolting, but Millie is horrified to see the beast has pinned Elena down. Lid watches the scene, a sudden realization dawning on him. He realizes this king toad is the source of the monster outbreak. Its sheer size and power have thrown the entire region out of balance. Millie understands that if they defeat this one creature, the entire infestation will likely end. Elena draws her sword, her eyes gleaming with resolve. She declares this is the perfect chance to level up, and unleashes a powerful thrusting attack. Her blade strikes true, a direct hit on the massive beast. Millie celebrates the hit, but Lid seems to sense something is wrong. Her attack bounces off, having all the impact of a wet noodle. The king toad lets out a furious croak. and brings its massive hand down upon her. She leaps back just in time to avoid being crushed, but the beast's tongue lashes out, ensnaring the Duke's daughter. She digs in her heels, struggling against the creature's immense strength. Millie asks if she's all right, but Elena is stunned that her sword was useless. She recalls that king toads are not typically aggressive creatures. Millie realizes this creature matches a description from an old text. Elena is confused, asking what she means by a text. Millie explains a legend of a great monster outbreak from centuries past, a plague that nearly wiped out a kingdom caused by a giant toad, a legendary creature known only as the Gigantoad. But as they stare in horror, Lid's staff begins to glow. The girls' fear turns to faith, declaring their master is here to save them. Lid's eyes narrow as he unleashes the true power of his divine weapon. The massive beast seems to flinch for the first time, and a blinding flash of holy light consumes the battlefield. Silky celebrates the decisive blow, already planning the victory feast. But Lid suddenly shouts that he missed, which is just fantastic news. The girls look around, wondering where the monster could be. Silky's eyes dart upward as he screams a warning. The massive toad has leaped high into the air and is now plummeting directly towards them. It lands with a ground-shaking impact. Elena lets out a terrified scream, bracing for the worst. But the girls open their eyes, confused to find themselves unharmed. Lid stands before them, a shimmering barrier protecting them from the attack. The massive toad leaps away with incredible force. As Silky clings to Lid's head for dear life, he's managed to get them all onto Solomon's carpet just in time. The girls call out to him, asking if he's all right. He quickly puts some distance between them and the monster, but Lid realizes this fight is far from over. The Gigantoad unleashes another lightning-fast attack. Its tongue lashes out, narrowly missing the flying carpet. They realize the beast is too fast to approach for a direct hit, and the toad just sits there, looking completely unbothered. Lid realizes that neither close-range nor long-range attacks are working. He clenches his fist, a new plan solidifying in his mind. He turns to Millie, asking if she can control the plants from this distance. She confirms that as long as she can see them, she can command them. Lid explains the plan. He'll jump down and create a diversion. Before anyone can protest, he holds Silky tight, ready to go. And with a final word, he leaps from the carpet into the open air. Silky, for his part, offers a very dignified and not at all panicked scream. Just as planned, thick vines erupt from the ground, ensnaring the Gigantoad. Lid shouts down from above, praising Millie for her perfect timing. He calls upon the legendary hammer, Mjolnir, the very same weapon he used on the marquee. He brings it down directly on the monster's head. The beast lets out a pained cry as the hammer connects. And our boy lands safely in a bubble because of course he does. Millie and Elena are completely speechless. From their vantage point, they praise his incredible power. Lid just offers a humble smile as if it was nothing. His companion, on the other hand, is completely traumatized. Back on the carpet, Lid offers a special treat to calm his frayed nerves. Silky asks if the girls have anything to say for themselves, but Millie points out that the Gigantoad seems to be getting smaller. It's now the size of a regular king toad, completely neutralized. But Millie suddenly realizes something is wrong. She calls out Lid's name in a panic, as they all stare down in disbelief. A massive black crystal is embedded in the ground, the same toxic ore from the marquee's mine. Meanwhile, a shadowy figure travels through the woods, musing that the toad's presence has vanished. A tattooed hand grips a window frame, watching from the shadows. The mysterious figure muses that the time is finally ripe. He declares that everything is happening according to a divine plan, and from this city, a new world order will soon begin. Back at the Vargas estate, the team has finally returned. The Duke greets Lid, overjoyed to see him safe and sound. He notes the confident look on our boy's face. Lid explains they defeated the Gigantoad, the source of the outbreak. The Duke is stunned, recognizing the beast from ancient legends. He thanks Lid, who humbly insists it was a team effort. The Duke acknowledges the difficulty of their battle. Lid listens, his expression unreadable. He then bows deeply, offering his official thanks. Our boy is completely flustered by the gesture, but he has something to show the Duke, revealing the familiar toxic black crystal. The Duke immediately recognizes the ore. Lid explains it was used to empower the Gigantoad. He asks how Lid can be so sure it was intentional, because the poison was extracted by human hands. Lid wonders if the toad simply ate the crystal by chance. He asks the Duke if any similar illnesses have appeared in his lands. The Duke realizes the ore from Dowell is the key to this outbreak. He vows to find the buyer, thanking Lid for his invaluable help. His attention then turns to Millie and the fate of Lastia village. He notes how much trouble this black crystal has caused. Elena steps forward, reminding him that their village's nightmare isn't over. The Duke agrees to talk but suggests they all clean up first. And so the team heads off for a much-needed rest. Elena, for one, is enjoying a moment of pure, blissful relief. In the bath, Elena praises Millie for her role in the fight, but Millie feels she was just a burden. So Elena gives her a playful splash to snap her out of it. Millie insists that their victory was all thanks to Lid's strategy. A sudden realization seems to dawn on the Duke's daughter. She pulls Millie into a hug, declaring her a new friend. Elsewhere, Silky enjoys his own private spa day. Because of course he does. Elena asks if Lid is always so brilliant in his planning. Millie admits it's hard just to keep up with his mind. Elena laments that such a talent was exiled from the capital, but Millie just smiles, telling her not to worry about that. She confidently states that her father will ensure Lid is recalled to the capital. With a wink, she suggests it'll be a simple matter to arrange. Millie can only offer a quiet, somber agreement. Elena quickly apologizes for her thoughtless words, but Millie insists that the capital is where he truly belongs, a sentiment that leaves the Duke's daughter speechless. Millie changes the subject, fondly recalling planting a garden with Liddy. Elena looks at her, a quiet understanding dawning in her eyes. The scene shifts to the Duke speaking with Lid that evening. He explains the evacuation order was from a rogue agency, and he plans to have it overturned. Millie explains that Lastia is a precious home to its people. Elena listens, understanding the weight of their plea. She then bows deeply to her father, formally asking for his help. The Duke smiles, assuring them he'll handle the royal family. A wave of pure relief washes over Elena's face. Silky, meanwhile, celebrates their new powerful ally with a snack. But the Duke then turns his attention back to the group, asking Lid if he wishes to return to the capital. The question hangs in the air, stunning both Millie and Elena. The Duke explains he can easily have the exile overturned. Lid is stunned by the offer to return to the capital. The Duke explains that Golbert's greed will doom the people. He praises Lid's record of saving both Lastia and Dowell. He believes Lid is the only one fit to be the next Archbishop. Elena listens quietly, her expression unreadable. But Lid looks him in the eye and politely refuses the offer, a decision that leaves Millie completely speechless. The Duke asks if the capital holds bad memories for him. Lid reveals that he too was an orphan, raised in a small village. He wanted to follow in his foster father's footsteps. He explains that after his exile, he felt completely worthless. But the kindness of Lastia's people gave him a new sense of purpose. He tells Elena that he finally found a place where he belonged. A realization dawns on her. His story is just like hers. He then saw a girl fighting desperately to protect that precious home. Millie listens, her heart completely captivated by his words. He says her dedication inspired him to repay the village's kindness. And with a tear in his eye, he declares he can't possibly leave now. Overcome with emotion, Millie leans against his shoulder. Lid is taken by surprise, quietly saying her name. He asks why she's crying, completely caught off guard. Elena pulls her into a hug, explaining a woman's heart is complicated, leaving Lid completely out of his depth. The Duke simply accepts his decision with a knowing smile. He promises to stand with Lastia village as one. Elena encourages Millie, telling her they must unite their feelings. Then she suddenly announces she's coming with them to Lastia. She pledges on her family's name to protect the village. Declaring that she will be officially dispatched to help them, she turns to Lid, addressing him as her master, and asks him to train her, admitting she's still too weak. Lid happily accepts her as his new student. The Duke knows there's no stopping his daughter now. Meanwhile, in a city shrouded by night, a mysterious figure steps onto the cobblestone streets. He walks with purpose through the quiet alleys. He's here to meet someone in the shadows. A woman with a cold gaze emerges from the darkness. He hands her a familiar-looking black crystal. She accepts the toxic ore without a word. Their clandestine meeting concludes, and they part ways. Back in the royal capital, the Grand Cathedral stands tall. Inside, Archbishop Golbert is in a furious panic. The young priest reports that Lid's research is nowhere to be found. Golbert erupts, cursing the useless priest for this mess. But the subordinate reminds him it was his own direct order, a detail that only makes the Archbishop even more furious. He orders the terrified boy to go and find them immediately. He needs those reports to win back Duke Vargas's favor, but his frantic search may already be too late. A new figure, a high-ranking priest, arrives at the cathedral. The high-ranking priest looks out over the royal capital. Golbert fumes, realizing he's being completely ignored. The man continues to gaze out the window, lost in thought. The Archbishop tries to get his attention, but his words die in his throat. The priest finally turns with a calm smile, apologizing for the delay. He explains he was just thinking, much to Golbert's silent fury. But then he calls out the Archbishop's name, making the old man jump. He asks if Golbert understands why he's here, stating he's caused a huge problem. The Archbishop can only sweat, his confidence completely shattered. He realizes this isn't just about Duke Vargas anymore. This could affect the entire church. Golbert grovels on the floor, apologizing for his personal dealings. But the high-ranking priest is unimpressed by his subordinate's greed. He reminds Golbert that the church's power comes from the people's trust. And the Archbishop realizes this is all because of that one protest letter. But inside the Grand Cathedral, a very different kind of sermon is being delivered. A cry of pain echoes through the once silent halls. Golbert is left a broken, weeping mess on the floor. The high-ranking priest delivers a harsh lesson in humility. He then offers a chilling smile, suggesting Golbert should have taken that letter more seriously. The priest asks if Golbert truly understands the cause of this mess. The Archbishop can only stammer, completely broken by the interrogation. His superior explains that the protests all started with Lid's exile, while delivering a very harsh lesson, a mark that will serve as a constant reminder of his sins. The word echoes in Golbert's mind as tears stream down his face. But there is one way out. Bring Lid Heworth back to the capital. The Archbishop can only repeat the name of the priest he cast out. He is ordered to reinstate Lid as a royal priest immediately. The scene shifts, revealing a black cat watching from the shadows. The high-ranking priest thanks his feline companion Yuria for her help. The cat's owner, Yuria, kneels, ashamed of her past words. She asks the high-ranking priest if Lid will truly return. He notes her intense dislike for the young priest and suggests they simply wait for the prodigal son to return. Yuria seems frustrated, mentioning something about a contract, but the priest just offers a knowing, confident smile. He has faith that Lid will do whatever it takes. The scene then shifts back to the peaceful Lastia village, where Elena is trying her hand at cooking, with disastrous results. Lana and Millie rush in to save breakfast from the noble's wrath. Silky wisely points out that she can do both at the same time. Elena, however, seems to think cooking is a battlefield in its own right. The next morning, Lid watches from his window as Millie hangs the laundry. He calls out a cheerful good morning, thanking her for her hard work. Millie happily returns the greeting, her day already brightened. But Lid has a question, holding up a piece of laundry that is very clearly not his. He's left confused as a mortified Elena suddenly flees the scene. She dashes back inside, snatching the delicate item from his hand in a blur. He just smiles, handing her the correct piece of clothing she was looking for. A few days later, the village celebrates their victory over the Giganto. Millie happily declares that with Elena around, their home is more lively than ever, and with the threat to Lastia village now a thing of the past. Thanks to the Duke's successful intervention, life has returned to normal. It seemed as though these peaceful days would last forever, but a new shadow looms. Elena suddenly turns, her expression filled with concern. A familiar figure has arrived, her father, Duke Vargas. She asks why he's here, wondering if he's come to take her home. But his weary expression tells her this is no social call. The scene shifts to a different part of the kingdom, where the young priest delivers some shocking news. Marquee Abe is dead. The group listens intently as the Duke explains the situation. He reveals the Marquis was being questioned about the Black Crystal's buyer. Just as he was about to mention the Royal Capital Church, he suddenly collapsed and died in his cell. An examination of the body revealed something strange. A mysterious glowing mark had appeared on his chest. The Duke explains it was a brand, a glowing, intricate pattern. Elena realizes he was silenced by the very person they're looking for, and Lid connects the dots. It must be someone from the church. The Duke asks if he knows anyone capable of such a deadly curse. Lid hesitates, trying to find the right words, but the Duke cuts him off, saying they'll wait for King Rakshana to arrive. A wave of collective shock ripples through the entire house. Elena can't believe her father is talking about the king coming over for a casual chat. The Duke just laughs, explaining he wanted to speak with Lid directly. Lid is completely floored, wondering why royalty would want to see him. Millie, on the other hand, immediately goes into full-blown panic mode. She and the chief realize they have nothing prepared for a royal visit. Silky notes that Lana is the only one who seems surprisingly calm. She just muses that with Lid around, even the impossible seems plausible. A few hours later, the welcoming committee waits with bated breath. The entire village stands in nervous silence, awaiting their royal guest. A grand carriage approaches, and Millie wonders what the king is like. An attendant opens the door to the lavish royal transport. The villagers bow as a figure begins to emerge from within. A single polished boot steps onto the cobblestone street. It's King Rakshana himself, looking every bit the part of a ruler. Lid and the chief offer a deep bow, but the king stops right before them. The chief begins to sweat, wondering if he's already messed up. But then, to everyone's shock, the king himself kneels to the ground. He weakly points, admitting he suffers from terrible motion sickness. Lid and the chief can only stare, completely dumbfounded. The gravity of the royal visit completely evaporates. His attendant explains the king just needs a moment to recover. Millie whispers to Lid, wondering what they should do. But she quickly gets an idea, offering to help. Lid suggests a special medicinal herb that might help. The attendant seems hesitant, but is willing to try anything. Millie presents a freshly prepared remedy using her special herbs. The attendant is stunned by the herb's incredible quality. The attendant confirms the herb's authenticity as the group watches on. The king drinks it down and is instantly revitalized, amazed by the effect. He then turns and correctly identifies the young priest, Lid Heworth. With a grateful smile, he grabs Lid by the shoulders, thanking him for his help. Lid explains the herb was enhanced by Millie's skill, which he himself granted. The king pulls them both into a hug, laughing heartily. So much for royal decorum. Once composed, he admits Duke Vargas told him about Lid's unique power. And speak of the devil, the Duke himself arrives with a proud smile. He offers a deep bow, greeting his king with the utmost respect. But the king just sighs, asking him not to be so formal in front of everyone. The king suggests he and the Duke share a drink later, but the Duke reminds him that for now, he is here as a king. The king then turns his full attention to Lid. He asks to witness the legendary rite of confirmment for himself. And so, inside the humble village church, the king is absolutely blown away by what he sees. He learns the villagers now hunt wyverns for sport, much to his attendant's horror. The ability to not only choose a skill, but to redo the ritual, is beyond anything he's ever imagined. He looks down at the young priest, his mind clearly made up, and offers Lid a position as his personal royal priest. Lid is completely stunned by the king's offer, and he's not the only one, as the entire room freezes in shock. Millie realizes this means Lid would become the king's personal priest. He knows that such a position is beyond anything he ever dreamed of, but with a steady voice, he politely refuses the king's offer. A decision that sends a second, even bigger shockwave through the room. The Duke just laughs, while the king laments getting rejected. But the king isn't offended, admitting he heard about Lid's loyalty. He sees that our boy is just as dedicated as the Duke described. With the pleasantries over, the king decides it's time to get down to business. The king explains he came all this way to discuss a matter of national importance. He presents the black crystal they recovered from the Giganto. He reveals his investigation has connected several disturbing dots. A map shows monster outbreaks are happening all over the kingdom. Lid asks the girls to think back on their recent encounters. Millie remembers the unusual swarm of wyverns near their village, and Elena recalls the pack of black wolves they just fought. Lid muses that he's also noticed rare monsters while dragon hunting for exercise, a comment that earns him a collective, unimpressed stare from everyone at the table. The king confirms their suspicions. All these incidents are connected. The attendant adds that monster outbreaks are spreading faster, and the timing perfectly aligns with the mining of the black crystal. Lid realizes this means someone is intentionally causing this chaos. The king confirms his suspicion. The culprit is within the church, a revelation that leaves our boy completely stunned. The king asks if he has any suspects, no matter how small the lead, and Lid reveals a name, Cardinal Driad. The king recognizes the name as the head of the entire church. Lid admits he only saw the man once from a distance, so the king asks why he would suspect him at all. The king listens intently as Lid explains his logic. He says only 2 men could use such a powerful curse. The king points out that Golbert had a clear motive, but Lid argues the 2 crimes don't quite add up. The king asks what reason the cardinal would have. Lid believes Golbert is greedy but not a cold-blooded killer. Silky chimes in, calling himself Lid's trusted partner, a revelation that completely short-circuits the king's brain. He just accepts it, chalking it up to diversity. But without proof, their investigation is at a dead end. The king notes that a killer this careful wouldn't leave any proof. Lid hesitates, his confidence shaken by the weight of his accusation. He admits it's hard to believe the church's leader could be so evil, but the king tells him to trust his instincts and that he'll handle the rest. Just then, a frantic villager bursts through the door. He announces that someone has arrived looking for Lid. The king smiles, telling our boy to go and see who it is. Outside, a very unwelcome figure walks through the village. Millie and Silky can only stare in utter shock. Lid recognizes him immediately, Archbishop Golbert. The villagers can only stare, their expressions a mix of shock and disgust. Golbert approaches with a sickeningly sweet smile, asking if Lid has been well. He claims to have brought good news, telling our boy to rejoice. With a grand gesture, he announces that Lid can finally return to the capital. He laughs, saying a man of Lid's talent shouldn't be wasting away in this tiny village. But Lid's response is a simple, unwavering refusal. He says he won't tolerate the Archbishop insulting the people of Lastia, and with a dismissive wave he tells the old man to go home. Golbert is furious, reminding Lid of his dream and the rewards that await him. But as he storms off, a shadowy figure watches, knowing Lid won't be swayed so easily. The king calmly explains that Lid doesn't share his low self-worth. Golbert's face twists in pure, unadulterated rage. He screams at the king, telling him to stay out of it. But his outburst is cut short by a flash of steel. The king's attendant holds a blade to his throat, warning him of his disrespect. And Golbert's brain finally catches up, realizing who he's just insulted. The king dismisses his groveling apology and points out the hypocrisy of him exiling Lid in the first place. Golbert realizes he's heard everything from his old friend, Duke Vargas. The king kneels down, smiling that he's happy to finally have this little chat. The night grows darker over Lastia village. Golbert begs the king to spare his life. But the king isn't interested in torture. He just wants information. Lid asks him about the church's leader, Cardinal Driad. The name alone sends a jolt of fear through the Archbishop. The king asks if he knows the cardinal's current whereabouts. Golbert stammers, claiming he has no idea. The king asks if he's willing to swear that to the goddess. But Golbert knows that Cardinal Driad's wrath is far more terrifying. He realizes he can't afford to talk and swears his ignorance. The king turns to Lid, asking for his thoughts on the matter. Lid believes the cardinal must be involved in Golbert's visit. The king agrees, knowing that lies will only obscure the truth. But Lid suggests his own skill might be able to help, as he summons another divine weapon. A set of ornate golden scales materializes in his hands. He asks the king for permission to conduct the interrogation himself. Lid calmly asks Golbert to reveal the cardinal's location, but the old man insists he doesn't know. With a steady gaze, Lid declares that the Archbishop is lying. Golbert erupts in fury, demanding proof as Lid points to the scales tilting to one side. He explains the scales weigh truth against lies, and this one is practically tipping over. Golbert scoffs, dismissing the scales as a cheap trick, but a dark, shadowy mass suddenly erupts from his feet. He stumbles back, trying to escape the clinging darkness. He screams in a panic, demanding to know what Lid has done. Lid explains this is the weight of his lies, a shadow that will grow with every falsehood. But Golbert, sweating profusely, still insists he knows nothing. The scales tilt even further, confirming another blatant lie, and the shadowy mass around his legs grows even larger. He realizes he's trapped, knowing the truth will activate the deadly brand on his back. Lid simply states that all he wants is to know the truth. The king realizes the contract is the key to this whole mess. Lid gives Golbert one last chance to confess, but the Archbishop sticks to his story, sweating bullets. The shadow mass suddenly erupts, shocking Lid. He begs the old man to just tell him the truth. But Golbert reveals that it's already too late for that. Lid finally understands a magical contract is forcing his silence. The Archbishop is consumed by the darkness, crying out for help. The others can only watch, completely stunned by the turn of events. But the king's expression is one of grim understanding. Lid agrees to help, his expression filled with a priest's resolve. He explains that to break such a powerful contract, Golbert himself must find the will to defy it. The curse fights back, writhing as Lid asks for the cardinal's location. Golbert struggles to speak, his body fighting against the magical seal. The shadows intensify, a physical manifestation of his internal battle. He lets out a silent scream, his body convulsing from the strain. But with his last ounce of will, he finally breaks free, revealing the cardinal is in the capital. Meanwhile, back in that very same capital, a voice calls out to Cardinal Driad. The high-ranking priest informs his companion that Golbert's contract has just been broken, much to her shock. Yuria can't believe Golbert broke the contract without triggering the death penalty, but the high-ranking priest just smiles, saying this confirms everything. A flashback reveals the young priest telling Golbert that Lid's actions are leading him to the truth. The high-ranking priest is certain that sooner or later Lid Heworth will come to him. The young priest, meanwhile, seems to be looking forward to Golbert's despair. What a ray of sunshine. The story flashes back to the day Lid was dismissed from his duties. 3 months have now passed since he was exiled from the capital. A familiar voice calls out his name, snapping him out of his thoughts. It's Millie, happily recounting how much fun the last 3 months have been. Elena and Silky agree, noting how quickly he solved every crisis they've faced. The villagers see them off, grateful for everything they've done. With a smile, Lid announces their next stop, the royal capital. And so their new journey begins under an open sky. Along the way, they consult a map of the recent monster outbreaks. Their first stop is a village that seems unnervingly quiet. The streets are completely deserted, a silent testament to the fear. A local shouts from a window, warning them of the danger. Elena turns, startled by the man's frantic plea. And just like that, a massive bat-like monster swoops down. Lid calls out to Millie, who prepares to unleash her thornbind. But Millie is ready, her vines erupting from the ground. The beast is caught mid-swoop, completely ensnared. Lid then unleashes another of his divine weapons. A blinding flash of light purifies the creature. Soon the entire pack of monsters is neutralized. With the threat gone, the team surveys their handiwork. The villagers emerge, praising the group for their incredible skill. Lid notes the monster's unusual size and power, but their investigation leads them deeper into the monster's lair, where they find the source of the problem, another black crystal. Silky notes that this is the second black crystal they've found on their journey. Lid lays out a map, realizing the monster outbreaks perfectly align with the crystal locations. And Silky adds that they also match Cardinal Driad's official travel itinerary. Lid recalls what the now-reformed Archbishop Golbert told them, that while the Cardinal's destinations were known, his true purpose was a complete mystery. Elena concludes there's no other reason for him to visit these remote areas. Silky asks if they should just keep collecting the crystals as they find them, but Lid believes they already have more than enough proof to act. With their course set, they decide to head for the capital at first light, but Lid reminds them this is a covert mission, crushing Elena's dreams of a comfy inn. That night, they make camp in the quiet woods. Millie uses her skill to create a cozy shelter inside a tree, but she finds herself unable to sleep, asking if Elena is still awake. The Duke's daughter admits she can't rest either, her mind troubled by Lid's burden. She struggles to accept that a high-ranking priest could be so corrupt. Millie wonders why anyone would want to cause so much suffering. But Elena tries to stay positive, trusting the king will see justice done. She then marvels at their 5-star, all-natural accommodations. She suggests they step outside for a bit of fresh air, a moment of quiet contemplation before they leave the shelter. But Elena insists she can't possibly relax in the dark. Millie suggests she come back inside, warning her of the spooky things that lurk in the night. The Duke's daughter, clearly terrified, reluctantly agrees to the terms. But as Millie steps outside, she's surprised to find she's not alone. Lid is already awake, keeping watch by the fire with a sleeping Silky. He thanks her for her help and offers her a warm bowl of soup. Millie suddenly freezes, a realization dawning on her. With Silky asleep, she's now completely alone with Lid. He just smiles, offering the soup again as she tries to calm her racing heart. She shyly accepts the kind gesture, taking the warm bowl from his hands. But in her flustered state, she fumbles the bowl. He asks if she's okay, as she apologizes for being distracted. He gently takes the now empty bowl from her hands. He tells her not to worry and heads off to wash it himself, leaving Millie to wonder what just happened. Her gaze then falls upon the other bowl of soup, the one that Lid himself had been eating from. A half-eaten meal just sitting there by the fire, and a very familiar, very flustered thought crosses her mind. She holds the bowl like a sacred treasure, ready for that indirect kiss. She takes a tentative sip from the bowl, and a blissful blush spreads across her face. She muses that it tastes like him, as Silky judges her silently, but a sudden noise snaps her out of her daydream. It's just Lid, returning with a fresh bowl for Silky. Millie gushes over how delicious the soup was. Silky explains that Lid has set up a barrier for the night. Millie finally asks the question she's been wondering about. Silky says to understand him, she must first understand Lid. And Lid reveals that, like her, he was also an orphan. Silky explains that he's a product of Lid's divine weapon summoning skill. Millie is completely floored, asking if Silky himself is a divine weapon. The cat just offers a smug, self-satisfied smile, but Lid clarifies that the weapon isn't the cat, but rather the jewel on his collar. He explains it's the physical manifestation of his foster father's wish. As a baby, Lid's magic was completely out of control. Millie is stunned, since magic usually appears much later in life. Lid explains that having magic is a sign of being ready for a skill. He just laughs, admitting he's always been a little different. Millie finally understands why Lid's power is so abnormal. Silky recalls the brutal training Lid endured just to control his magic. His foster father was a priest named Greem, a man whose strength was as legendary as his foul mouth. But Lid remembers him as the kindest person he ever knew, the man who took in both a lost boy and a stray cat. Greem performed the rite for Lid just as his own health began to fail. Silky remembers the old man's nightly routine, drinking and talking about Lid's future. And from his bed, a young Lid would listen, pretending to be asleep. Silky just wishes he could have joined the conversation back then. Lid then reveals the old priest's final wish. was to see his boy grow up, a joy he'd soon have to leave behind. And so, Lid used his newfound skill to create a single precious jewel, a gift that allowed the old man to finally understand Silky's words. He wanted to repay the man who saved him even after he was gone, a promise he continues to fulfill to this very day. Millie is completely overcome by the story of their bond. Lid explains that, like her, they were blessed to find a family. She thanks him for saving them, but he insists they saved him first. A special bond that has now spread to include a duke's daughter and a king. And together, they will stop the Black Crystal conspiracy for good. Millie suddenly wakes with a start, calling out Elena's name, but it was just a dream, as the duke's daughter sleeps soundly nearby. The next morning, the royal capital finally comes into view. Lid recounts their journey, having collected 2 of the black crystals, the very same toxic ore that started this whole mess. Meanwhile, the high-ranking priest is already in the capital, waiting for them. He explains to Uria that everything is going according to plan. He lights a candle, his own scheme slowly coming to light. He muses that bringing Lid back was meant to restore faith in the church. But now, he'll simply use the king to achieve his own ends. The royal capital, a city of towering spires and bustling streets. The city is alive with the sights and smells of the market, a place where even dragons ride unicycles, apparently. The team makes their way through the curious crowds. Millie is amazed by the city's scale as Elena explains the layout. The outer walls separate the common folk from the inner sanctum. She wonders how they'll ever get an audience with the king. But Lid calmly explains that with the right papers, it's simple. He's confident the king's own letter will be their golden ticket. The guard, however, seems less than convinced by their story. The guard reads the letter, recognizing the name of the king's attendant. The gates swing open and the guards quickly usher them inside. A familiar voice calls out Lid's name, making him turn in surprise. It's the king's attendant, Gauss, thanking them for their swift arrival. He leads them toward the castle, clearly a man of high standing. But Gauss suddenly stops in his tracks, a look of panic on his face. He frantically explains that the king has gone missing. Lid can only stare, wondering how one misplaces a king. Gauss says the king left on an inspection tour, expecting to meet Lid in the city. Millie looks around at the bustling streets, realizing their mission just got a lot harder. As they search, Millie walks through the crowded streets. She's startled by an old man begging from a dark alley. Elena warns her not to get involved, saying it could cause trouble. But even she seems to hesitate at her own words. Just then, a hooded figure approaches the old man with an offer. He points him toward a place where he can find honest work. Millie thanks the stranger, then asks if he's King Rakshana. The man just smiles, confirming he's traveling incognito. Elena is stunned as the king explains that a ruler can't see the truth of his kingdom from inside a castle. The king asks Lid for a full report on his journey. Lid explains the clear link between the monster outbreaks and the black crystals, and the king is impressed by the evidence they've gathered. Lid hands over the toxic ore, which the king agrees to secure. Just as he's about to head back, Gauss arrives with a tray of food. The attendant scolds his king for wandering off and eating street food, but the king just smiles, proud of the man Lid has become. Gauss continues his rant as the king's memory seems to be conveniently failing him. Elena offers to serve the food while it's still warm, as Silky waits patiently. But a sudden, loud noise shatters the peaceful moment. Both Millie and Elena look up in utter disbelief. A massive dragon has appeared, perched atop a city tower. Lid immediately recognizes the foul energy of the black crystal. He orders Millie to restrain it while Silky protects the civilians. Her vines shoot up, wrapping around the beast on the tower. But she realizes there aren't enough plants in the city for a strong hold. Lid tells her it's okay, preparing to unleash his divine weapon. The dragon strains against the vines, its power overwhelming. The thorny restraints begin to snap under the immense pressure. The team can only watch as the beast prepares to break free. A cloud of dust and smoke rises from the tower. Elena and Silky wonder if the attack was enough. But the dragon is only wounded, and now it's furious. Silky warns Elena that the beast is on a rampage. With a furious roar, it swings its massive tail and brings the entire tower crashing down. The civilians below can only scream in terror. Lid and his team move to shield them from the falling debris. He realizes the dust cloud is obscuring his view of the beast, so he takes to the skies on Solomon's carpet, ready to end this. He spots the dragon through the cloud of dust. He closes his eyes, apologizing for what he must do, and unleashes the full power of his divine weapon. A pillar of holy light descends from the heavens and strikes the corrupted beast with purifying force. The crowd below can only watch in stunned silence. His team celebrates the victory a little too soon, but Lid finds a familiar shard in the wreckage. He stands on the rubble, confirming his worst fears. It's another piece of the toxic black crystal. He holds up the shard, telling the crowd the poison is gone. But Elena cries out a frantic warning about what's behind him. Lid turns, completely confused by her sudden panic, because the single shard he found wasn't the only one. A nearby warehouse has collapsed, revealing a massive cache of the toxic ore. Lid can only stare, wondering how this is even possible. Just then, a new voice cuts through the confusion. A mysterious man in a dark cloak addresses the crowd. Lid realizes the dragon was driven mad by the crystal's influence. The man smiles, wondering why royal land is hiding a secret stash of poison. The crowd erupts in panic and suspicion, and Lid realizes this is all the work of Cardinal Driad. The people's fear turns to wild conspiracy theories. Lid can only repeat the cardinal's name in fury. But the mysterious man places a hand on his shoulder. He reveals he has the crystal and this is all a trap. Lid argues that the royal family's honor is at stake. The man explains this is a plot to frame the king. A horrifying realization dawns on our boy. As the true mastermind plays the part of a benevolent savior, Lid utters the name of the man behind it all, Cardinal Driad. The cardinal himself appears, questioning why the exiled priest has returned. Lid explains he simply followed the trail of destruction the cardinal left behind. The cardinal scoffs, daring him to produce any actual proof. He asks if Lid means the massive stash of toxic ore, or the single piece his accomplice is holding right now. He then plays to the crowd, suggesting that if he's investigated, so should the royal family. Lid agrees that a full investigation is only proper. But before that, he vows to personally stop this evil and see justice served. The cardinal just smiles, suggesting they work together as fellow servants of the goddess. Later, inside the Grand Royal Castle, the team gathers to plan their next move. The king asks what they should do now that the cardinal has made his play. He admits the situation is dire, as the enemy has them cornered. Lid and Silky realize this is a plot to turn the people against the crown. Silky cheekily asks the king to forgive Lid's occasional blunders, a request that leaves the king completely baffled by the cat's slang. Lid bows in apology for his rash actions, which nearly caused a national crisis, but the king just smiles, telling him not to worry about it. Lid, completely missing the point, is now fired up to confront the cardinal directly. Lid admits he was naive to trust the cardinal's letter. Millie worries that his actions have tarnished the royal family's honor, but Elena and Millie leap to his defense, insisting the blame lies with the cardinal. Millie nods in fierce agreement with the duke's daughter. The king just sighs, noting that everyone seems ready to storm the cathedral. But Lid insists he won't let this become a public affair. He declares that the royal family has nothing to do with this. This is a personal matter, a visit to his former superior. Silky tells the king that once Lid's mind is made up, it's best to just look the other way. Gauss questions this decision, but the king admits he's betting everything on the young priest. The king realizes this was the cardinal's plan all along. He admits that Lid saw the only path forward, and he had no right to refuse. He can only lament his own powerlessness in this national crisis. And so, the team arrives at the Grand Cathedral. Lid steels himself for the confrontation ahead. Millie is stunned by the massive crowd that is gathered. Lid knows they're all here out of fear, seeking salvation. Elena notices a strange cloth, seemingly hiding someone from view. Silky explains it's a simple cloaking skill, telling her to look ahead. Because right on schedule, Cardinal Driad makes his grand entrance. Lid decides their first move is to search the cardinal's office. He knows that finding a black crystal there would be all the proof they need. They arrive at his private chambers, only to find the door is locked tight. Millie knows this is the most important place to search, but they're completely stuck. Silky confirms the room is empty, but that doesn't solve their lock problem. So Lid summons another divine weapon, a master key for any occasion. He explains it can open any lock, and right now it's their only option. Millie is a bundle of nerves, much to Silky's absolute delight. With a soft click, the ancient lock gives way. Inside, they find a simple, unassuming study. The room is filled with ornate, holy decorations. Elena notes that nothing seems out of the ordinary. Lid knows the cardinal wouldn't leave proof lying around, but Silky's keen senses pick up a strange draft near the altar. Their attention turns to a large, decorative angel statue. The team begins to inspect the statue for any clues, and Elena is the one to find it, a hidden keyhole. Lid realizes his divine master key is perfect for the job. He inserts the key and a mechanism begins to turn. With a heavy groan, the wall slides open, revealing a secret passage. A hidden staircase leads down into the darkness below. While Silky is eager to explore, Elena is less than thrilled. She clings to Millie, clearly not a fan of spooky secret passages. They descend into the depths, only to find a dead end. But Lid realizes this isn't just a simple wall. It's a massive, imposing door blocking their path. He explains that opening it will break their invisibility. The girls understand. They need to be ready for a fight. Lid reaches for the handle, confirming it's unlocked. With a steady hand, he pushes the heavy door open. The team stands ready, their expressions grim. Lid peers into the darkness, wondering what lies ahead. They find a massive, cavernous hall like a sacrificial chamber. Their eyes are drawn to a dark, winged silhouette, a headless statue of the goddess herself. The girls are understandably creeped out by the sight. Silky confirms there's no scent of black crystal, but this isn't a dead end. Lid knows the Cardinal hid this place for a reason, but their investigation is cut short by a sudden movement. As a wall of fire erupts from the ground before them, a massive dragon emerges from the flames, its scales shimmering. The girls recognize it as a legendary Kaiser dragon. Elena can't believe they missed something of this size, so much for a secret lair. They stand frozen before the colossal beast. Lid realizes it's just like the last one, its presence completely hidden. A sudden blur of motion cuts through the air. The team braces for an attack from the shadows, but Lid's eyes catch a glint of something else. He cries out a warning about incoming projectiles. The dragon lets out a furious, challenging roar. Elena realizes their invisibility has worn off, but Lid tells them to leave it to him. He closes his eyes, preparing to summon another divine weapon. His gaze is sharp, his focus absolute. He raises his staff, ready to counter the threat. But the girls are pinned down by a volley of massive needles. Silky warns them that a fire attack is coming next. The Kaiser dragon opens its jaws, ready to incinerate them. But Lid unleashes the power of his own sacred weapon. A barrage of holy light rains down upon the beast, each bolt streaking through the air with purifying force. The holy light slams into the massive dragon, but Elena notices another attack coming from the ceiling. She realizes they're being sniped, but Lid knows he was the only target. He senses a powerful killing intent from a skilled user who knows him. A new figure lands gracefully on the stone floor. It's a woman with a cold gaze, her arm injured from the blast, and Lid recognizes her immediately as the secretary, Urea, the Cardinal's own secretary, now standing as their enemy. She raises her hand, preparing to unleash her own power, and summons a host of shadowy beasts from the darkness. She screams his name, vowing that this is where he will fall. Lid can only stare, caught off guard by her intense hatred.